My beloved brothers and sisters, if you also want to embrace this truth in your life, then watch the video till the end. When we talk about patience in the context of relationships, one of the deepest truths we often overlook is that Allah's wisdom governs who enters our lives and who eventually exits. People don't just appear randomly. They are placed in our paths with intention, with purpose, and with a level of precision that only Allah, the knower of all things, can orchestrate. Sometimes the presence of a person feels like a blessing from the very first moment. Other times their impact is subtle, complicated, or even painful. But in every case there is divine wisdom unfolding. There are moments when we cling to people because of emotional attachment, fear of loneliness, or the comfort of familiarity. We imagine that if someone is in our life, it must mean they are meant to stay forever. But Allah reminds us repeatedly in the Quran that He is the one who controls hearts, destinies, and outcomes. He gives and He takes in ways that protect us, even when we don't immediately recognize the protection. A person may leave because their season in your life has ended, or they may be removed because their influence, if allowed to continue, would harm your spiritual, emotional, or mental well-being. Allah's mercy sometimes comes disguised as separation, and the difficulty for many of us is acknowledging that mercy in the moment it arrives. When someone walks away or disappoints us, we often interpret it as a failure on our part. We assume we weren't good enough, or that the relationship could have been saved if we tried a little harder. But Allah sees what you cannot see. He knows the long-term consequences of that connection. He knows what that person says about you when you're not there, how they treat you behind the scenes, and the subtle ways they might pull you away from your purpose. Sometimes Allah removes a person not because they are entirely bad, but because they are not aligned with where He is taking you. And this is where patience becomes essential. Patience is not just waiting for something better to come. Patience is trusting that Allah has already made the best decision on your behalf. It is accepting that the unseen reality is more accurate than your emotional interpretation. When Allah chooses to distance you from someone, it is always for reasons that carry more depth than you could uncover on your own. Think about the times in your life when you desperately wanted a relationship to work. You prayed for it, you fought for it, you invested everything into it. Yet, no matter what you did, the situation kept falling apart. Later, you discovered that the very thing you thought would complete you would have actually drained you. You realized that what you wanted was not what you needed. That clarity only came after Allah intervened. This is one of the signs of His love. He removes what harms you even when you are unaware of the harm. There is also a psychological dimension to this divine arrangement. Human beings often overestimate their ability to judge character. We can be impressed by appearances, personality, charisma, or emotional chemistry. But Allah looks at the heart. Allah looks at sincerity. Allah looks at who truly benefits you in your faith and who does not. So when you are confused about why someone drifted away, why a friendship faded, why a relationship ended abruptly, remind yourself that Allah is not just the creator of people, He is the guardian of your soul. He protects you in ways you did not think to ask for. At times, Allah removes people not because they were toxic, but because you needed to grow independently. Their presence might have created stagnation. Their influence might have limited your development. Their absence becomes the very space through which you discover strength, clarity, and purpose. That too is mercy, even if it does not feel like it at first. The deeper lesson is this: release your need to control who stays in your life. Trust that the one who created you is also managing the relationships around you. Allah is too perfect, too wise, too merciful to allow the wrong people to remain attached to you longer than necessary. When someone leaves, do not see it as a loss. See it as Allah quietly guiding you towards something better, something healthier, something more aligned with who you are meant to become. And if you allow that understanding to settle in your heart, your patience becomes lighter, your grief becomes softer, and your trust in Allah becomes stronger. Remember this: when Allah removes, He is not depriving you, He is preparing you. Let that truth settle deeply, and let it reshape the way you see every departure in your life. When we speak about patience, many people think of it as a passive state, something you endure, something you tolerate, something you reluctantly put up with, because you have no other choice. But in Islam, patience is not a passive resignation. It is an active, conscious form of worship. It is a deliberate decision to place your trust in Allah, even when your emotions are pulling you toward frustration, anger, or despair. Patience is not weakness, it is spiritual strength. When you are dealing with toxic people, the urge to react impulsively becomes very strong. You may feel compelled to defend yourself, to retaliate, or to confront harshly. You may want to expose someone's behavior or fight for closure that the other person will never willingly give. All of those impulses come from pain, and pain seeks expression. But patience in these moments is the ability to say, I will not let my hurt dictate my character. I will let Allah handle what is beyond my control. This is why scholars often explain that patience is half of faith. Because faith is not demonstrated when everything is going well, when people are kind, when life is stable. Faith reveals itself when you are tested by people who drain you, betray you, disappoint you, or disrespect you. In those moments, your reaction becomes a reflection of your inner relationship with Allah. You are either driven by ego, or you are anchored by trust in Him. When you refrain from responding to negativity with negativity, you are not suppressing your emotions, you are elevating your soul. You are showing Allah that you choose His guidance over your impulses, and that choice is recorded as worship. Every moment you hold back from responding in a way that would compromise your character, you are rewarded. Every second you remain silent instead of escalating a conflict, you are rewarded. Every time you choose dignity when someone else chooses toxicity, you are rewarded. But patience doesn't mean tolerating abuse. Islam never asks you to allow yourself to be mistreated. What patience means is that while you take the necessary steps to protect yourself, you do so with grace, with wisdom, with calmness, not with hatred, not with revenge, and not with bitterness in your heart. Patience is taking the right action without losing yourself in the process. There is a psychological beauty to this as well. When you are patient, you give your mind permission to process things clearly. Reacting in the moment often leads to regret, but patience allows you to act from clarity, not emotion. It gives you the space to see the situation as it truly is, not as it feels in the intensity of the moment. Toxic people thrive on your reactions. They feed off your emotional responses. Patience denies them that power. It keeps you centered, grounded, and in control of yourself. Patience also protects your peace. When you decide, I will not respond to negativity on their level, you reclaim your inner strength. You stop giving your energy to people who do not value it. You refuse to let someone else dictate the emotional climate of your heart. And that is a deeply empowering act. It is not weakness. It is mastery of the self. Spiritually, patience is an acknowledgement of Allah's promise. Allah tells us repeatedly that He is with the patient. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. He is with them. His mercy accompanies them. His guidance envelops them. His protection surrounds them. When you choose patience, you step into that divine companionship. You place yourself under the care of the one who never forgets, never miscalculates, never fails. It is easy to retaliate, easy to lash out, easy to respond with sharpness. Anyone can do that. But it takes a person of real depth, real maturity, and real faith to pause, to breathe, and to remember that Allah sees what you are enduring. The patience you show today becomes the strength you carry tomorrow. And the reward for your patience is not only in the hereafter. Allah grants peace, clarity, and emotional liberation in this world as well. So the next time someone's toxicity provokes you, remind yourself that your response is an act of worship. Your restraint is noticed by the one who matters most. Your silence is not emptiness. It is security, and every moment of patience is building something inside you, resilience, wisdom, and spiritual refinement. Hold yourself to this truth. Your patience today is shaping the person you are becoming tomorrow, and the person guided by patience is the one Allah elevates. Choose patience, not because they deserve it, but because you do. One of the most liberating realizations you can come to in life is that the difficult people around you are not punishments from Allah. They are tests, carefully calibrated tests designed to reveal who you are, what you value, and how much you are willing to rise above what drags you down. When you encounter someone toxic, someone who challenges your peace, disrespects your boundaries, or brings turbulence into your emotional world, it is easy to fall into the trap of believing, "Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this?" But the presence of such people in your life is not an indication of divine anger. It is often a sign of divine refinement. Allah tests the people He loves, and one of the ways He tests you is through relationships that stretch your patience, expose your weaknesses, and force you to confront parts of yourself you might otherwise overlook. Toxic individuals, whether they are manipulative, draining, dishonest, or emotionally unstable, push you into a space where you must choose between reacting impulsively or responding with wisdom, and that choice is the essence of the test. If every person in your life was kind, honest, and emotionally healthy, your character would never be challenged. You wouldn't learn forgiveness. You wouldn't develop resilience. You wouldn't practice self-control. You wouldn't master the art of maintaining dignity when someone else loses theirs. It is through these relational trials that you develop spiritual and psychological maturity. The toxic person may not be good for your peace, but they are good for your growth. And sometimes Allah uses them to teach you lessons that comfort could never teach. There is also a deeper philosophical reality at play. Human beings grow through contrast. You understand the value of light because you've experienced darkness. You appreciate honesty because you've encountered deceit. You recognize sincerity because you've tasted insincerity. Toxic people create contrast. They remind you of what you do not want to become. They mirror aspects of yourself that need correction. They force you to clarify your principles, strengthen your boundaries, and refine your intentions. Allah does not place such individuals in your life to break you, but to build you. He does not send them to destroy your peace, but to sharpen your awareness of what true peace actually looks like. And the test is not about the other person's behavior. That is between them and Allah. The test is about your response. It is about what happens inside your heart as you navigate the situation. Will you allow bitterness to settle? Will you respond with anger? Will you lower your standards to match their behavior? Or will you hold on to your values even when it is difficult? When you understand this, everything changes. You stop wasting energy trying to fix people who have no desire to change. You stop personalizing their actions as attacks on your worth. You stop expecting spiritual behavior from people who are not spiritually guided. Instead, you shift your focus inward. You ask yourself, how can I grow through this? What is Allah trying to teach me? What strength is being built within me right now? And here is the beautiful part. Once the lesson has been learned, Allah removes the test. Sometimes the person leaves abruptly. Sometimes distance grows naturally. Sometimes you wake up one day and realize their influence has diminished. This is one of the signs that the divine purpose has been fulfilled. The removal is not random, it is perfectly timed. Allah does not keep you in a test 1 second longer than necessary. Psychologically, this understanding is deeply empowering. It stops you from seeing yourself as a victim of someone's toxicity, and instead positions you as a conscious participant in your own growth journey. Philosophically, it aligns you with the reality that life is designed to shape your soul, not just comfort your emotions. And spiritually, it anchors you in the certainty that Allah's plan is always operating in your favor, even when the experience feels unpleasant. Toxic people may shake you, but they will not break you, unless you allow them to. Their role in your story is temporary, but the lessons they leave behind are permanent. Allah uses them to stretch you, to test you, to elevate you. So the next time you encounter someone whose presence feels like a burden, remind yourself, this is not punishment. This is purification, and purification is always a sign of divine love. There comes a point in life when holding on becomes more painful than letting go. Yet, for many of us, detaching from people who hurt us feels almost impossible, not because we don't recognize the damage they cause, but because our hearts are wired to hope, to forgive, to try again. We convince ourselves that maybe, with time, effort, or sacrifice, things will change. But sometimes Allah's mercy is hidden in the very separation we resist. When He removes someone from your life, especially someone who brings more pain than peace, He is clearing space for what will heal you, guide you, and elevate you. The truth is, healing and toxicity cannot coexist for long. One of them must eventually overpower the other, and Allah, in His wisdom, knows exactly when a relationship has run its course. He knows when it is no longer contributing to your growth, your clarity, or your spiritual well-being. He knows when someone's presence has shifted from being a lesson to being a limitation. And when that moment arrives, detachment becomes not only necessary, but transformative. Spiritually, this detachment is a form of surrender. You are acknowledging that Allah's plan for you is more accurate than your desires. You are admitting that you do not see the full picture, but you trust the one who does. Letting go is not a sign of emotional failure. It is a sign of spiritual maturity. It is choosing long-term peace over short-term attachment. Psychologically, you begin to understand that releasing a toxic person is not abandonment, it is alignment. You are aligning yourself with healthier environments, stronger boundaries, and better emotional habits. You are stepping away from the patterns that drain you and stepping into the ones that nurture you. You stop seeking validation from people who have never understood your worth. You stop expecting stability from people who thrive on instability. And you stop tying your identity to relationships that were never meant to define you. What many people don't realize is that attachment is not only to the person, it is to the idea of them, the idea of what they could become, the idea of what the relationship should have been, the idea of the moments that felt good. Detaching, therefore, is not just distancing yourself physically, it is freeing yourself mentally and emotionally from expectations that continuously disappoint you. It is learning to differentiate between what feeds your soul and what exhausts it. When Allah removes someone, He is not simply subtracting, He is making room for clarity, room for healthier connections, room for emotional independence, room for the blessings that have been waiting for you but could not reach you because your hands were too full holding onto the wrong people. You cannot receive what is written for you if you are still clinging to what was never meant for you. There is a philosophical depth here as well. Life moves in seasons. People come and go according to divine timing. The ones who leave teach you something you needed to know. The ones who stay nourish what you have already learned. And the ones who arrive later often become the blessings you never expected. But if you refuse to release what hurts, you unintentionally delay what heals. Allah does not take without giving. That is not His nature. But the giving sometimes comes after the removal, not before it. The gift comes after the space has been cleared. The healing arrives after the wound has been acknowledged. The clarity appears after the noise has been silenced. So trust the transition, trust the distance, trust the changes you did not ask for but desperately needed. When Allah removes someone, He is not pushing you backward. He is guiding you forward. He is redirecting you from what was damaging your spirit toward what will strengthen it. And although the process feels uncomfortable, the outcome is always in your favor. If you allow yourself to detach in the way Allah intends, you will discover that peace is not found in holding on. It is found in letting go with grace. It is found in accepting that not everything or everyone is meant to journey with you into the next chapter of your life. And the moment you surrender that grip, the moment you finally release what was poisoning your heart, you open the door to a level of healing you never thought possible. Remember this, sometimes what you fear losing is the very thing blocking what Allah is trying to give you. Let go, so the healing can finally enter. One of the most damaging effects of keeping toxic people in your life is the way they slowly make you question your worth. They chip away at your confidence through criticism, manipulation, comparison, or emotional neglect. You begin to internalize their behavior, thinking, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I deserved this treatment. And that is exactly how toxicity traps you, by distorting the way you see yourself. But your value was never meant to be handed to people. Your value comes from Allah. He is the one who honored you before anyone else had an opinion. He is the one who created you with dignity long before anyone had the chance to disrespect you. And He is the one who determines your worth, regardless of how others choose to treat you. If you allow people to define your worth, you will constantly fluctuate. On the days they are kind, you will feel valuable. On the days they are dismissive, you will feel small. But if your worth is anchored in Allah, no insult can reduce you, and no compliment can inflate you. You remain steady because the one who defines you is unchanging. Many of us get stuck in unhealthy relationships because we keep seeking validation from people who are incapable of giving it. We look for acceptance from people whose hearts may be unstable or wounded. We look for reassurance from people who haven't learned to reassure themselves. This is why the Quran reminds us repeatedly that honor belongs to Allah alone. When you seek your worth from Him, you stop chasing it from people who were never meant to carry that responsibility. There is also a psychological layer to this dynamic. Human beings naturally mirror the treatment they receive. If someone respects you, you begin to respect yourself more. If someone undermines you, you may unconsciously shrink. This is why toxic people are so dangerous. They train you to see yourself through a distorted lens. You start believing the narrative they project, not the truth that Allah revealed. And the longer you remain in that environment, the more foreign your true worth begins to feel. But this is precisely where spiritual consciousness becomes a form of emotional liberation. When you remind yourself that Allah created you with value, on purpose, with purpose, you break the psychological hold that toxic people have on your self-perception. You reclaim your identity from their hands and place it back into the hands of the one who fashioned your soul. Philosophically, this understanding changes everything. If your value comes from people, then losing them becomes terrifying. But if your value comes from Allah, then losing people is simply a transition, not a crisis. You realize that someone walking away from you does not lower your worth. It simply removes the wrong witness of your life. The right people will see your value without you having to lose pieces of yourself to prove it. And this is part of Allah's mercy. Sometimes He allows a toxic person to hurt you, not because you deserve the pain, but because the pain wakes you up. It forces you to see what you have been denying. It pushes you to recognize that the version of yourself you've been living is not the one Allah intended for you. Their treatment becomes the very thing that leads you back to your true identity. From a spiritual perspective, your worth is linked to your connection with Allah. The more you align with Him, the more your dignity becomes unshakable. You stand differently, you speak differently. You expect differently, You stop allowing people to play with your emotions like they are toys. You stop apologizing for having boundaries. You stop internalizing mistreatment. And you stop shrinking yourself just to fit into places that Allah never designed for you. When you grasp this, you begin to walk with a quiet confidence, not arrogance, but certainty. A certainty that says, I know who I am because I know who created me. Toxic people lose their power over you because their approval is no longer your source of meaning. Their rejection no longer threatens your self-image, and this is the moment you reclaim your life. Let this truth settle deeply. No one on this earth has the authority to determine your worth. Not their opinions, not their treatment, not their acceptance, not their rejection. Your value is anchored in the one who never changes, never misjudges, never diminishes what he created with honor. Remember this. People may misjudge you, misunderstand you, or mistreat you, but Allah never does. And his view of you is the only one that truly matters. One of the most difficult parts of dealing with toxic people is the lack of closure. You rarely get the apology you deserve. You rarely receive a clear explanation for their behavior. And you almost never get the emotional resolution your heart is hoping for. This is where many people remain stuck, waiting for someone who hurt them to suddenly become self-aware and acknowledge the pain they caused. But closure from people is often incomplete, inconsistent, or entirely unavailable. Real closure, lasting closure, liberating closure comes from Allah. When you rely on Allah for closure, you are acknowledging that the healing of your heart is not dependent on human actions. It is dependent on divine mercy. You stop waiting for someone else to fix what they broke. You stop expecting emotional maturity from someone who couldn't even manage their own. And you stop postponing your healing while hoping for a moment of honesty that may never come. This is why dua becomes so powerful in times of emotional turbulence. It is more than words. It is surrender. It is the moment you say, Ya Allah, I cannot carry this on my own. I cannot untangle this confusion with my mind alone. I cannot heal these wounds without your guidance. When you raise your hands to Allah, you are not begging for the past to change. You are asking for your heart to be strengthened enough to move forward. There is also something deeply psychological about relying on Allah for closure. When you let go of your desire to control outcomes, you take back control of your inner world. You redirect your focus from what was done to you toward who you can become after it. Toxic people often leave emotional residues, doubt, anger, disappointment, fear. But when you turn to Allah, you begin the process of cleansing your heart from that residue. You shift from being reactive to being reflective. You become less focused on the person who hurt you and more focused on the meaning behind the test. And then there is protection, another divine blessing many overlook. Allah does not just heal you after harm, He protects you before harm reaches you. Sometimes the people you thought were blessings were actually threats to your spiritual progress. Sometimes the relationship you desperately wanted to work would have derailed your future in ways you cannot imagine. Sometimes the individuals you admired were slowly draining your motivation, your peace, or your purpose. Allah's protection is not always visible. Sometimes it looks like rejection, distance, or separation. Things we initially interpret as loss. But Allah sees what you cannot see. He hears the conversations you never heard. He knows the intentions you never detected. He witnesses the behaviors you were blind to. And out of His love, He removes you from environments that would have damaged you more deeply had you stayed. This is why trusting Allah's protection is essential. It shifts your perspective from why did this happen to me to what did Allah protect me from. That single shift can transform your entire emotional landscape. Philosophically, relying on Allah's protection means accepting that the world is not random. People do not leave or enter your life without purpose. Every departure contains direction. Every closure contains clarity. Every ending contains the seed of a new beginning that Allah has already prepared. Spiritually, this reliance brings peace. When you trust that Allah is handling matters behind the scenes, you stop overthinking every detail. You stop replaying conversations in your mind. You stop analyzing someone's behavior as if your healing depends on understanding their motives. You move from restlessness to rest. You move from anxiety to acceptance. You move from pain to perspective. And perhaps the most profound part of relying on Allah is the confidence it gives you in moving forward. You no longer fear losing people because you know Allah never removes what is good for you. You no longer fear being alone because you know the presence of Allah is more comforting than the presence of any human. You no longer fear the future because you trust the one who writes it. This reliance becomes your shield, your anchor, and your source of resilience. It is what allows you to walk away from toxicity without bitterness, to heal without resentment, and to grow without carrying unnecessary burdens. Let this truth settle in your heart. The closure you seek, the healing you need, and the protection you deserve, all rest with Allah. And when you trust Him fully, you will realize that nothing you lost was ever meant to break you. Remember this: the moment you hand your heart to Allah is the moment no one can ever shatter it again.